nagbabalik po ang Republika at Attorney Kenji, no?
Yes.
Yung mayroon tayong hindi na napag-usapan kanina, yung binanggit mo kanina na transmission.
Yes.
Ano yung gusto mong ibanggitin?
I think yung sa transmission, no, ang gusto lang, nabanggit namin to sa aming press conference, no, isa po sa gusto namin hingin or hilingin sa COMELEC ay yung pag-divulge nila ng mga areas or mga presinto, if we would be more specific, kung saan po nagkaroon ng failed transmission.
Okay.
We think this is very important. So for us public, for us who are the most important stakeholders in every election,
Para hindi na maulit.
to verify
Oo.
kung nagkaroon ba ng, para ma-monitor natin, ito yung dapat bantayan kasi ito yung nagkaroon ng failed transmission. And at the same time, makita natin kung nagkakaroon ba ng pattern every after election, kung lagi, itong mga area to, lagi ba silang ang nag-failed transmission.
Totoo ba sa Mindanao, ARMM din, may mga 100% di nagtatransmit?
100.
Opo.
Hindi, 100% ang turnout.
100% ang turnout?
Yes.
Okay.
Hindi na po ako nagtataka doon, lagi naman kung gano'n sa
Ganun
Mindanao.
talaga?
Opo.
Okay.
Opo, sa Mindanao, lagi naman.
What do you think of suggestions na pag merong ano daw, pag hindi daw pag sira daw yung PCOS machine, gawing manual? Pwedeng i-shift ka agad sa manual. Pwede ba 'yon? Making use of the same paper.
Pwede
Pwede
naman
yun.
po 'yon. Pwede naman po 'yon ayon po sa batas, no. But of course, bago po tayo makarating sa manual sa pagmamano-mano, meron munang ilang options na dapat ma-exhaust bago tayo makarating
Okay.
doon.
Nabanggit mo kanina na talagang maintindihan natin kung bakit minadali ng COMELEC yung pagpoproklama, no?
Opo.
Pero sinasabi naman ni former Congressman Teddy Boy Locsin, who was one of the principal authors of the automated law, that the entire purpose of his sponsoring the law was not to expedite the results of the elections, but to make it accurate.
To make it credible.
To make it credible and accurate. No? That's the more important. So, he's saying, why was the COMELEC so much in a hurry? And a lot of other luminaries are saying they could have waited for 2 or 3 more days. Anyways, what's the difference? They could have proclaimed everybody, no? But you're talking about 13 million and given 70% of 53 million, you're talking about 30 plus, 31.4 million na hindi pa more or less, no? So you're talking about what? 13 as against 30 million. So that could adversely change the results. So
No, from what I know, the remaining COCs left to be counted would amount to 400,000 votes that are from that came from overseas.
no, how about
voters.
dito sa locally daw?
Parang yun po hindi na ata. That's from what I know. Correct me if
Oo.
I'm wrong. That's from what I know. Ang natitira na lang po na hindi pa naboboto, kaya nakapag-proclaim sila kagad, is the votes of the overseas absentee voters, which amount to 400,000.
Kasi doon sa May 16 at May 17,
Opo.
13 million pa lang. So we're talking about 53 or 52 million registered voters, 70% ang nag-turn out. So we're talking about 32, 30 million voters, actual voters.
Yung official count po ng COMELEC.
So malaki pa ang butal sa 13 million na yan.
Maybe the 73% is not accurate. It could be lower than that. Yes. I'll check on our. We have a tally of different provinces with the voters turnout and the percentage. But I never computed about the total. No. The 73% could be higher. I think it is lower than that.
The highest we ever recorded.
Although there are places that has 82%, but there are also provinces with less than 50%. Even I noticed there were some provinces that have 20 to 30% voters turnout.
Pero si Attorney Kenji will understand this as a lawyer. What was the basis of the proclamation?
There's no legal basis. Legally.
Yun nga ang problem.
There's no legal basis.
This is now, it puts the entire process,
In,
the entire exercise and the entire proclamation to question.
and therefore, it loses the credibility.
Precisely.
It doesn't result into public confidence. It doesn't inspire public
Bakit
confidence.
ginawa ng COMELEC when all they had to do was wait for, are we on a deadline? Was COMELEC on a deadline when they had until June 30 to actually do their jobs, if technically speaking, huh?
Well,
Well,
they
as
haven't-
what Attorney Kenji have mentioned, maybe it's a personal deadline.
They have an informal deadline set to
Not necessarily on the legalities, no, but
And this personal deadline is
yeah.
more important than these legal niceties that people want to say.
Brillantes had to be better than Melo, put it that way. Plain and simple.
Oh.
Melo was able to do it within 7 days, and he wanted to break that record. that was a personal deadline. But because of this personal deadline of his, just so he has bragging rights about how quick he was able to do it as chairman, he took on himself risking the credibility and the accuracy of this election. I think the failure lies on somebody in COMELEC, and I think somebody's head has to roll, because the credibility, I mean, the integrity of our electoral process, I mean, the presence of electoral fraud is right here. We took notice of all our elections from 1987 up to 2010. Every midterm election, the highest we have, although on a national average, is 75%. We reached 84% once in a presidential election. But now we're saying we're hitting 74, 75% now on the COCs that we have received. But they're saying ARM is showing 100% turnout. This is just too unreal.
In the old practice, when you're proclaimed a senator, you're given your certificate of proclamation. Two things are in that certificate of proclamation.
The amount of votes.
You're standing in the winning column or in the slots. That's very important. Number two, the total number of votes, which forms the basis of your proclamation. In the initial quickie proclamation that everybody witnessed, there was no standing on the winning slots or the basis for your having been proclaimed number of votes. So how can that be cured if not with the final the final COC being opened, and this should be cured by another certificate of proclamation being given the senators?
It may sound foolish, but the only remedy that we could think of is nullify the proclamation, complete the canvassing,
correct,
and then just proclaim again. If they happen to be the same candidates, then so be it.
Yeah, I agree.
The problem is
only to save the integrity.
Correct,
of
which
the
is
process.
everything, no? And the problem here is what happens if
All of a sudden it's a different.
in the final COC, when the final COC is opened, there are 2 or 3 senators which have been robbed of their slots.
Yeah.
They cannot go to the Supreme Court.
No.
The Constitution talks about the Senate Electoral Tribunal as the sole judge.
Actually, that's the scenario that we wanted to avoid. That's why we want a complete canvassing. Because at the end of the day, two things. We don't want any candidate protesting. It could have been me. If I may reiterate the term, it could have been me.
Yes.
And the next thing is, we don't want the electorate to feel that this government is not legitimate. It doesn't have our mandate because there's a certain number of voters or there are certain votes that are not reflected at all. So that's what we wanted to avoid. So that's why we wanted to complete canvass before proclamation.
Attorney Kenji, if you don't mind my asking you, how long have you been a lawyer?
Just recently.
Okay. You would have definitely avoided and followed what is called as the due process of law, no?
Of course.
Okay. And you're a lawyer only what, for a year? How
No,
come
for less than a year,
Less
sir.
than a year. How come other lawyers who have been longer in practice, and I think who have more gray hair than you do, are about ready to violate the law that you are upheld to, sworn to serve? Please explain to me, why are you, the guardians of the entire process, ready to violate and put into question the entire exercise and even put the commission into question just to expedite the proclamation of notional winners? I'm not questioning whether they are winners, actual winners. I'm simply saying, as you know, we're questioning just the process. No? As always. We're just looking at the law and and there are established jurisprudence for this.
Yes.
So why did COMELEC turn its back on established jurisprudence and establish their own regulations? I'm putting you on the line as a lawyer here.
To be honest, I really couldn't speak for them.
Okay.
I don't know what
Buti na lang hindi kami lawyer.
I don't know what's running in their minds, but
Okay.
I would like to believe that they were only after what they think is for the benefit of the country. However, if you may ask me,
Okay.
there were several resolutions that were junked by SC. I see the noble intent in it.
Okay.
However, the money ban, personally I agree with it.
Okay.
I agree with it. The other resolutions, I see I appreciate the value of it, the goal.
Okay.
But however, I always say, like we always say, as lente, as guardians of the electoral process, the end will never justify the means. No matter how good the intent
Correct.
was, how noble the intent was, we are after the process, and the process must always be observed. Rule of law must always be upheld.
course.
Otherwise, it will destroy the very foundations of the institution of democracy in our society.
I'll push you a little further. If COMELEC went as far as changing the rules in the middle of the game, aren't there regulations
They
in
cannot,
terms of publication and the number of days that have to pass after publication, the mandatory days? Please enlighten us, those of us who do not know.
Okay. The notice and hearing requirement, it's not. If it is an administrative resolution, according to law, there are some instances that does not require notice.
Yes.
So, although as a general rule, notice and hearing is required, there are some instances that does not require notice. And COMELEC being an administrative agency, I think we could do away with some of the resolutions that does not have notice. But what we are after always is due process.
Correct.
So every time, as election monitors or as the perceived legal experts
Okay.
monitoring the election, we always try to look at the purpose and the restrictions, whether it is reasonable to achieve the purpose. So oftentimes, there were legal infirmities. We try to speak out those infirmities. We appreciate the goal, the intent, the aim, but we must always follow and comply with the law.
Tatanungin ko to si Senatoriable Penson. Ang COMELEC naglabas, pagdating dun sa mga lokal na mga COMELEC, provincial, municipal, you can only proclaim when you see that the lead of the number one candidate is almost insurmountable. And whatever percentages is left for the unopened votes will not adversely affect the results. Okay. If you remember in Manila, we saw a picture of Mayor Isko Moreno sleeping already because they stopped the proclamation until almost 100% na yata nabuksan bago i-proclaim, no? Hindi, not enough, 80% eh. Now, here you have the mother company or the mother commission violating its own regulations. Your comment.
Well, I was not surprised at all. Kasi ano na yan eh, sinasabi na at saka ginagawa nila has always been two different things.
Okay.
Yung sa amin lang eh, sa Pusada, we showed them the death threats we were receiving. And we were entitled to 2 security for every senatorial candidate. Lahat binigyan, kami hindi binigyan. And we had the PNP certification of the threat assessment. Tapos na eleksyon ngayon, wala pa rin nangyari doon sa aming request. So that's one. Number 2, from the very beginning, doubtful na that COMELEC is really serious about maintaining or sustaining credibility or perhaps gaining credibility dahil sa tingin ko hindi nila na-recover pa. And gagawa nila kagad ng ganito na naman. Sasabihin nila na we need to proclaim because it won't change anymore. Ang basis nila is from day one, it's been the same ranking. But we've only opened up 74 COCs. In fact, to give you the data, at the time of the proclamation, validated votes has only reached 9 million votes. So yung sa mere what do you call that?
Transparency server.
Transparency server
Yes.
was a little bit advanced pero hindi pa verified lahat yun dahil mirror server pa lang. So 9 million, nag-proclaim ka na. Asan ang veracity mo to follow the